and attacked me again last night in the detention center in Tel Aviv at the airport. Of course, this is nothing compared to what others have gotten. Palestinians get this every day. This is all I have. This is it. My blood, these bloody clothes, that's all I have. Israel has taken everything else, including my Palestinian passport, which I handed over, a legitimate Palestinian passport, which was given to me by the Palestinian Authority in 2008 when we arrived with the Free Gaza movement. I saw the murder, the mass murder that Israel perpetrated on the Mavi Marmara.
Are you in the Mavi Marmara?
Yes, Mavi Marmara. Yes, Mavi Marmara. Sorry, my head's a bit wrong. I saw 5 of the martyrs, one with the bullet right in his head.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
Oh, goddamn hacker, that second time tonight that asshole's cut in.
The movement was begun 8 months ago by a small group of scientists who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent through...
Thing's giving me a headache. Yeah, tell me about it. It took the hackers months to figure out how to do this.
The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain.
It's only countries like the United States, Britain, France, and all these hypocrites that are developing nuclear weapons in the United States using them as well. America has been hijacked. Netanyahu coming to the U.S. Congress is perfect. I'm very happy about this because it is going to force the genuine American patriots who swore to uphold the U.S. Constitution. You need to face the fact that the Founding Fathers were right about the enemy inside the gate. Your nation has been hijacked. Congress is nothing but a den of traitors. This man in Washington is a chicken hawk who wants to send more American sons and daughters off to another war for Israel. It's not enough for him that more than 22 American service members a day are committing suicide. He wants more. He wants more Americans to die for Israel.
I'm so sorry, both of you, but we are definitely out of time. I like to thank peace activists and former U.S. Marine out of London and the President Middle East Research Center, Richard Hellman of Washington. Thank you so much for being with us, also viewers. Hopefully you're joining us right here, same time, same place on The Debate tomorrow. Goodbye.
What's the threat? We all sell out every day. Might as well be on the winning team.
There is no sovereignty of nations. There is no international law. And this so-called intelligence analyst, this intelligence analyst appears to be completely oblivious to the fact that it was the United States which supported the Mujahideen, which became Al-Qaeda, which morphed into Al-Nusra Front, then ISIS, ISIL, IS, whatever the hell you want to call it, has been arming these people, training these people, providing bases and training in Jordan and also in Turkey. Their little proxies of Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Kuwait have been funneling money and arms, and now we're being told that they're going to be training the so-called moderate factions of resistance in Syria in Saudi Arabia. That bastion of moderate behavior, the Wahhabi Saudi Arabia regime, one of the most offensive, if not the most offensive regimes on the planet, a place that we give weapons and we give cover to, political cover, media cover. The idea that an intelligence analyst could be so oblivious and so completely incompetent at his own field that he does not recognize the United States having supported, armed, trained, coddled, and protected all these terrorists for decades now is beyond belief. He can't be so stupid, surely, not to know that the United States has an inherent interest in popping up continuously one boogeyman after another to justify what I said earlier, the military-industrial complex, the goal of full-spectrum dominance, military bases all around the world. This is what's happening, and people with half a brain know this.
Go ahead, Mr. Elliott, if you want to comment.
I'm not going to continue to be insulted by this other person. I'm ending the interview. Find somebody else to listen to a moron speak his mind.
You insult the people of the world with your so-called intelligence analysis. You are sending American sons and daughters off to yet another war so that they can become so traumatized and so sick and so maimed that they can come back home to the tune of 22 American sailors and servicemen a day committing suicide. You are a traitor to your nation or criminally incompetent.
They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want. What's wrong with having it good for a change? Now they're going to let us have it good if we just help them.
The United States is in a perpetual state of war because the bankers control the politicians and they read the script as given to them by the banksters and they make huge amounts of money off of this. What this gentleman is saying about the United States not wanting war, not wanting to get involved is like Iraq 2.0. It's a repeat of the same rubbish that was said, oh, we don't want war, war is a last resort. That's absolutely untrue. It's a lie. Those that are in government are nothing more than prostitutes who are carrying out the orders of those who are in charge of them, and those that are in charge want another war. And part of that is what we discussed earlier, the Greater Israel Project, to destabilize any Arab regime which might have any kind of autonomy and self-determination. Any regime in the Arab world that is not an absolute puppet cannot be tolerated. And who are the nations that we target? Those that are not puppets. We don't target those like the Saudi regime, which is the biggest human rights violator in that region. It's cutting off people's heads in public, cutting off hands. It is the most grotesque regime on the planet, and yet we give that regime weapons and it's no problem whatsoever. The duplicity and hypocrisy of the United States and the West can't even be measured. It is so enormous. And these mouthpieces, such as this gentleman in Washington, is only doing a disservice to himself and his country. And the fact is that American sons and daughters will get involved in this yet again, and these chicken hawks who are pretending to care about the Syrian people are going to be sacrificing not their own sons and daughters. I would like this man to send his sons and daughters and his grandchildren off to Syria when this turns into a greater conflict, because this is what we're flirting with, is a world war. A third world war. This is not a joke. We are flirting with a third world war on the basis that apparently we care so much about the Syrian people, just like we care so much about the Iraqi people and the Afghani people. The only people that buy this sort of stuff are either bought-off prostitutes or the dumbest of the dumb. And we're also led to believe that Assad is the dumbest idiot dictator on the planet now, isn't he? Because he invited UN inspectors to come in, and he brought them in on the very day that they come in. He decides to attack his own people 10 miles away from where the inspectors arrive. This is beyond ridiculous, and the only people that buy this, again, are bought-off prostitutes or the dumbest of the dumb.
What's the threat? We all sell out every day. Might as well be on the winning team.
The people of Israel, just like my American brothers and sisters, are infected with the ideology of exceptionalism. I call exceptionalism, actually, more accurately, supremacism. The idea is that we are somehow better than everyone else, and it is this infected ideology of supremacism which has allowed the United States and its citizens effectively to sit by while we have committed one atrocity after another. If we go back to World War II, the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the firebombing of Tokyo, Dresden, the firebombing of Dresden was particularly hideous. We can go on to the Korean War and Vietnam War. In the Vietnam War, we dropped more bombs than all of World War II combined. 20 million bomb craters created there. We killed probably 2 to 4 million Vietnamese or Asians, Cambodians and Laotians as well. We've committed one crime after another. We have supported dictators like Suharto, Pinochet. We've kidnapped many people around the world who have stood for diplomacy and democracy. We have a long list of crimes over and over again, and the only way that that was possible is because we subscribe to an ideology of supremacism. Israel is a nation-state based with citizens who are infected with a supremacist ideology that makes them believe that they are, quote, chosen, and as chosen people, everyone else who is not chosen is effectively subhuman. The Palestinians have borne the brunt of this ideology for many decades now and know exactly what it's like to be treated like subhumans, to be treated like dogs. In fact, dogs are even treated better than the Palestinians are. So what this French diplomat experienced in the last couple of days is exactly that, just a taste, a small taste, of what it's like to be a Palestinian in an occupied land with a rabid dog racist state where even Netanyahu himself has referred to the Jewish people as a race. It is a racist state based on racist supremacist ideology, and the treatment of the Palestinians and everyone else who comes to the aid of the Palestinians is indicative of this racist supremacist ideology.
They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want. What's wrong with having it good for a change? Now they're going to let us have it good if we just help them.
terrorist groups that are wreaking havoc in the Middle East and all over the world, like Hezbollah, that is holding Lebanon like a mafia, that is helping kill people in Syria and other groups. Now, for Iran to oppose Sunni terrorist groups, but at the same time be the main proponent of Shia terrorist groups and some Sunni terrorist groups like Hamas, is a farce. So I'm not going to engage more of what the co-panelist is saying. I think he needs a psychologist more than to be on TV because of the screaming and the clear emotions there. But in terms of your questions, that's my answer. The sanctions are there because of Iranian actions, that's all.
Mr. O'Keefe, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's like an alternate universe, isn't it? I mean, the whole world can see who is a real threat. And to be talking about Iranian terrorism while we, the United States, supply Saudi Arabia with the latest weapons deal we did, $60 billion worth of weapons, to a nation that is provably financing so-called Al-Qaeda and ISIS for decades. For you, if you're going to say what you say, I'm not getting angry. I'm having a good laugh at the nonsense at what you say. Do you want to deny that Saudi Arabia is the primary funder of terrorism in the region? You want to deny that Saudi Arabia, our good friend and ally, who we just sold $60 billion? Yes, you don't want to acknowledge that, do you? You have no problem with Saudi Arabia and the $60 billion we sell to them? Why are you interrupting me? Why?
Are you asking me a question?
Why? Why do you make personal attacks?
Are you asking me a question? Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, I'm asking you a question. Do you deny that Saudi Arabia... Listen, let me ask the question so you can answer it. Do you deny that Saudi Arabia is the primary funder of so-called Al-Qaeda and ISIS and Al-Nusra Front, along with the Wahhabi doctrine, the Takfiri doctrine that is playing out throughout the Middle East? Do you agree that our best friend and ally Saudi Arabia is the primary funder and motivator of these terrorists running around the region chopping off heads? Do you agree with that?
So I had to turn the volume down again. Nobody, I think, is ever going to deny that the Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia have been the main proponents of Sunni Salafist ideology, and that they're now funding either the government or people in the kingdom and other countries, and they are funding ISIS. That doesn't give a pass or get out of jail free card to Iran funding Assad and Hezbollah and Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. If you're against funding terrorism on one side, be against funding it on the other side. I have no problem criticizing Saudi Arabia for what it's doing.
Where is the evidence and where is the case to be brought against any of these people that you're accusing? Do you realize that Osama bin Laden was never even charged with any crime related to 9/11? You're an ignorant and you're an unpolite man. I sit and listen to your nonsense and you just speak over me when I make clear facts to you.
The human spirit is corrupted. Why do we worship greed?
Well, the reality is obvious. There is impunity when it comes to Israeli actions, and I would also make clear that the United States and Britain enjoy a similar impunity. Why is Tony Blair and George Bush not rotting away in a prison at The Hague for what they've done to the Iraqi people? 1 to 2 million dead, and yet no one has been prosecuted on any meaningful level at all. Israel enjoys the same thing, and that's because they both, all of these entities, have the favor of the banksters, the ones who run the world through the financial system. And until we change that, we will not change this. But going back to what she said, at the end of the day, listen, I am a human being, and I consider every person on this planet to be a brother and sister, and I want what's best for everybody. And for us to understand the truth and move forward with an understanding of the truth is what's necessary to create a better world. And the truth is that this current system cannot continue. So what we've seen by what's happened in Syria is very promising. The powers that be wanted a war on Syria, but because people did not consent and give the facade of consent, there is no war on Syria. That shows who has the real power. We, the people, have the real power.
Okay, on that note, we're out of time.
They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want. What's wrong with having it good for a change? And they're going to let us have it good if we just help them.
Well, we don't operate under international law. What we have is the color of law, the law of the jungle, in which the rich and the powerful basically determine what goes and what doesn't go. Iraq is a perfect example of that. Why isn't Tony Blair and George Bush rotting away in a prison cell for the rest of their lives? Because the law is not being applied. These are war criminals, and they should be in prison for the rest of their lives, if not executed, if their own rules were adhered to for their own crimes. Not only that, but we need to really understand the truth here. First off, all of these players, these politicians, are nothing more than puppets. They don't serve the people. There is no real democracy. They really serve the rich and powerful who run the world, and that would be the bankers who control the money supply. The bankers, of course, make huge amounts of money. Whether they make bad investments or not, wars are great for them, and ultimately they control the politicians, and that is why we see these policies. Obama and Cameron are nothing more than puppets who read the script, and the script is, we need another war. And the reason why we need another war, according to these psychopaths who are running the world, is because more and more people, despite the clueless masses who continue to be entranced by things so ridiculous as X Factor and American Idol, there is larger numbers of people around the world who are realizing the truth and beginning to recapture the capacity to think for themselves. And they can see that these people who are being put in positions of public trust are defying that trust and representing an agenda which they could never speak about openly, because they're nothing more than prostitutes and nothing more than minions for the powers that be.
They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want. What's wrong with having it good for a change? And they're going to let us have it good if we just help them.
Well, again, so many lies have just been trotted out, and that's why this person in Washington can pretend as if you're not being a moderator when in fact you're only restating facts. Let's look at the Lavon affair, where Israel was caught trying to instigate a problem with Egypt. Let's look at the USS Liberty. It wasn't so safe for Americans then. 34 American sailors were murdered and 171 injured, and Israel did its best to sink the USS Liberty, and they failed in that. And that's the only reason why the nuclear-armed Phantom jets that were launched towards Cairo weren't used, because the Liberty did not sink, and survivors were able to tell the tale. It wasn't safe on 9/11 either, when we had Mossad agents who were told of the event, had foreknowledge of the event, were there filming the event, and everyone who was arrested on the day of 9/11 was an Israeli. There were no Arabs. You don't even have any decency. I did not interrupt you through all of your rubbish. You are a chicken hawk. You are a chicken hawk traitor. You're the one. And you're rude. You're the one hiding. I listen to all of your lies. Hiding in London. I listen to all of your lies. You're the one hiding in London. You're the one come back to the States. But when you did you fight in the military? You're not. I'm an ex-Marine who actually fought. You are a coward. Listen to you. Let me go back to Washington. Have you ever been in the military? I don't know what you did, but have you ever been in the military? How dare you? I've served in combat, you chicken hawk coward.
All right, let me go. Ken, stay with me. Going back to Washington, Richard.
They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want. What's wrong with having it good for a change? And they're going to let us have it good if we just help them.
Well, the Greater Israel Project is all about destabilizing surrounding nations, ultimately in pursuit of this dream of Greater Israel, from the Euphrates down to the Nile, all the way over to the Eastern Mediterranean. This is the dream of these psychopaths, and so destabilizing governments, creating sectarian strife is all part of that menu and all part of the design to create Greater Israel. So that goes, it's self-evident. But I have to go back to what this gentleman is saying in Washington, D.C. about America not wanting to get involved, or Obama not getting involved. What are you talking about? We have been arming people directly who are Al-Qaeda. Al-Nusra Front is Al-Qaeda. These people are psychopaths to the worst order. They're conducting suicide attacks. They're gassing people. We know Carla Del Ponte said in May that it was the so-called rebels in Syria that were using sarin gas, not the Bashar al-Assad regime. No, it was not. We know that the United States President is arming people who are on the U.S. terrorist list. He should be convicted of aiding and abetting, giving material support to a terrorist organization. But then again, you know what? We, the West, the United States in particular, Israel and Britain, are the biggest terrorists on the planet. So our little junior partners in Al-Qaeda, which is nothing more than a CIA database, thus the name Al-Qaeda, this is nothing more than a group of terrorists working together, each playing one different role, but all of them working together for the same goal, which is to maintain this hideous and sick and twisted, unjust world that we have, which is a perpetual state of war. Always one illusion, one boogeyman after another. But the fact is, Obama is nothing more than a puppet war criminal, just like his predecessor and every other U.S. president before him. So please don't tell people out there that the U.S. is not involved. It's directly involved, and it is arming people who are absolute psychopaths.
They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want. What's wrong with having it good for a change? And they're going to let us have it good if we just help them.
Well, the first thing I have to say is that this man is extremely repugnant, and he'll probably interrupt me again despite the fact that I have had to endure the nonsense lies that he is stating. The first thing I'll say is that I'm an ex-Marine who served in the infantry in a war. I don't know who this man is, but I doubt that he fought for his country. He's a chicken hawk coward who is actually serving a foreign interest.
No, I did.
Israel had identified target number one for some time. You are a repugnant man, and you can't even keep your mouth shut.
Business, I wasn't.
Here you go again. Right. And this is all you can do. Well, then you have no business insulting a fellow service member who has served in combat as well. So if you are so disgraceful that you disregard and disrespect somebody because they have opposing views when in fact they served in the U.S. military, then shame on you on every single different level there is.
Go ahead. Can you answer
the
question?
Getting back to what I was saying, the fact is that Israel and its policies are American policies. First point that should be made is that the war in Iraq was a war for Israel. This was identified in Oded Yanan's strategy for Israel in the 1980s. Iraq was identified as target number one, and that war was always based on a pack of lies coming from Israeli sources or dual national sources. The so-called dodgy dossier was the excuse used to justify this. The same people who produced that lying propaganda to justify the invasion and occupation of Iraq are the same ones lying about Iran's farcical, mythical Iranian nuclear weapons program. It does not exist.
I just want to get equal time. Ken, stay with me, please.
The human spirit is corrupted. Why do we worship greed?
For you to be more of a prostitute than I would consider you to be any kind of analyst. You will do anything that your power brokers tell you to say, and ultimately what you're doing when you're talking about Russia not getting involved and all of these external issues, is all you're trying to do is justify what the powers that be, those paymasters who put you in positions of influence, they're only giving you those orders because ultimately that's their agenda, and it's the only way that they can maintain their system. I don't believe for 1 second that you believe anything that you say. Really what you're doing is selling your soul to the devil, as it were, and you'll say anything and everything if it means that you'll continue to have this position of influence and power which they give to you. You're nothing more than a minion, and really I have more respect for the prostitute on the street than I do.
Let me tell you something about Ken O'Keefe. Ken O'Keefe, who was supposedly a Palestinian advocate, was accused of embezzling funds for the Free Gaza movement flotilla. And I believe he was even arrested in England under suspicion of doing that. When some of the women in the International Solidarity Movement, who, by the way, I'm no fan of, confronted him about his stealing the money, he whipped out his in front of them as an insult. So this is the expert that Press TV has talking about the other side. Mr. O'Keefe, unfortunately, has been a traitor to his country, although he still is a U.S. citizen despite his claims that he's not. And he goes around supporting the ISM, and he attacks democracies like Israel and the United States, and he supports every dictatorship and other entities out there which do not serve their people. So this is Ken O'Keefe.
Okay, fine.
Ken, you want to get personal with me? Feel free to do it, and I'll lay on it even more on you.
No, we don't want that. But Ken O'Keefe, I'm going to have your reaction. I'm going to ask you to keep it brief because what Lee Kaplan did was a character assassination on you. But let's keep it brief because I have to grant you that rebuttal. But then we want to move on to the subject of Syria. Go ahead, Ken O'Keefe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see where this man thinks he can establish that I whipped out my apparently. Somebody wrote something like that on the internet, and you have the ignorance and stupidity to actually say it on international television. So I would now like to ask, since I actually don't have money,
Greta Berlin of the ISM actually
many years. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. You brought up Greta Berlin. I was going to give her, the respect of not saying that, but yes, you're right. Greta Berlin did say that.
You were a human shield
did say that, and shame on her for doing so. And this is a perfect example. This is a perfect example of where we, the people who are supposed to be really truly okay, I'll tell you what. I did not interrupt you while you said all of the things you said both times. But you are such a disgusting individual that you're able to cite lies, and you're also incapable of listening.
You accused me.
Please,
you're
Lee Kaplan.
You accused me.
Go ahead,
you accused me of being. You accuse me of being in the pay of the powers that be out there. I'm in nobody's pay. I'm an independent journalist. I don't get paid by Israel. I don't get paid by the United States.
You are
I
a
make money
prostitute,
doing
plain
research.
and simple.
Unlike,
you are nothing more. In fact, the prostitute on
you
the
want to
street
talk about being a
deserves
prostitute?
far more
You are a
respect
human
for
shield
selling
for
her body than you do for selling your soul. You have absolutely no honor and no integrity whatsoever. I have put my life on the line many times over with no pay whatsoever, and you have the nerve to equate me with supporting dictatorships. You, as a servant of the empire, are nothing more than a prostitute intending to maintain a system of tyranny which is violating people left, right, and center all around the world. We have been in the business of supporting dictators like Saddam Hussein and so many other tin pot dictators around the world, and all the while you've been nothing more than a mouthpiece for this system of tyranny. Shame on you, shame on all like you, all the minions, the mainstream media that have perpetuated these lies ceaselessly.
Wake up! They're all about you, all around you.
Well, there's no question that they don't intend for limited strikes, and that's not going to do anything. They want to go in full scale. That's the plan. Of course, they'll use pretext to be able to justify the initial attack, and then they'll concoct more things to justify a greater involvement. The Daily Mail reported here in the UK, and it's commonly understood to those who are paying attention, that defense contractors, leaked emails from defense contractors proved that there was already an approved plan from Obama down to give these psychopath terrorists, al-Nusra Front, chemical weapons. We know that al-Nusra Front, 12 individuals in Turkey were caught with 2 kilos of sarin gas. Where did they get that from? And this is, clearly a false flag. We understand this to be true, and it's the only way that they could justify an attack at all. And I have to say, I'm happy that the gentleman in Washington mentioned Dempsey, General Dempsey of the Joint Chiefs, because I'll tell you what, more than anything else, it is the true American patriots, those who are sick and tired of having given up their life to basically serve the American dream, the American nation, the Constitution that they swore to uphold. It's those military men and women. It's you now. It's coming to you now. Are you a patriot or are you not? Are you going to let your nation descend even further into the chaos and corruption that has been so sick and so twisted that it's destroying American lives as well as the rest of the world, to the tune of 22 American servicemen a day who are committing suicide? Are you going to sacrifice more of your American sons and daughters for Israeli wars, for Zionist wars? Are you going to continue to do that because you are not a patriot? You are in fact aiding and abetting the terrorists you supposedly think you're fighting against. And those Americans who are waking up to this, I hope to God, in the military in particular, that you refuse your orders. And this is why the people of America who are refusing to buy this nonsense, the overwhelming majority do not support any kind of attack on Syria. And in those in the military, I know that the powers that be are very, very frightened that high-ups within the military will refuse the orders. And I hope this is exactly what happens if an attack on Syria occurs.
Very well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much, former U.S. Marine and war veteran there, Ken O'Keefe, talking to us from London. And thank you very much from the Senior Fellow at Center for American Progress, Lauren Korb, who spoke to us from Washington.
Wake up! They're all about you, all around you.
Well, if you take a look at the Greater Israel Project, and for people who don't know what that means, Google Greater Israel Project. And if you want to look at Oded Yanan's strategy for Israel in the 1980s, you'll find that actually what we see playing out in the Middle East right now is perfectly in line with Israel's long-term objective, which is to expand into Syria, into Lebanon, Iraq, Egypt, Jordan, and parts of Saudi Arabia. This is the long-term goal of the psychopaths who basically are the forerunners to all of these policies which favor Israel. All of this is in line with the agenda of Israel, to get the Arabs and the Muslims to bleed each other. That term is actually used, and to effectively balkanize the region so that it will be in a fractured, weakened state where sectarian hatred is rife. And in this fractured, weakened state, Israel eventually intends to expand. So the policies are not actually a failure. It's just that those who are in the position to carry out these policies are lying about what they really are. And I will cite the 22 American service members a day who continue to commit suicide for having been sent to fight off wars for Israel, specifically in Iraq, where they committed such horrendous atrocities that in places like Fallujah, for instance, the people are being told, women in particular, not to have children because the area is so badly polluted with depleted uranium and other weapons that the birth defects and cancers are so high to not even have children. This is the type of policy that America's been carrying out for a long time now, and American sons and daughters have been used for cannon fodder for these damn policies. And this man sitting there in Los Angeles is basically a parrot for these insane policies, and he's filling the people with all sorts of nonsense, such as Iran's mythical nuclear weapons program, which simply does not exist, with no evidence, and also claiming that Hezbollah and other entities are terrorists of the same order of ISIS, which is beyond ridiculous. But this kind of stuff can pass in an ignorant population, which still sadly exists in the United States. But thankfully, more and more Americans are waking up to this nonsense, because again, the enemy is inside the gate and using American sons and daughters as cannon fodder.
They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want. What's wrong with having it good for a change? Now they're going to let us have it good if we just help them.
Take Ken O'Keefe.
Well, it's beyond laughable, really. A Jewish person cannot marry a non-Jew in the state of Israel because it is a racist state. It is the Jewish state. A Palestinian who can prove his background and even has deed titles to land in Palestine cannot return to Palestine. Yet a Jew anywhere in the world who can trace their Jewish hereditary path can return to the state of Israel. This is a racist policy. Not only that, but the laws for the Israeli citizens and the few Arab citizens of Israel is totally different from that of the non-Israeli citizens who are occupied in the West Bank. And of course, we know about the treatment of the people of Gaza, whereby 1.7 million people, which includes over 800,000 children, probably about 850, 900,000 children, over half of the population of Gaza is children, and yet they can be collectively punished, supposedly based on the crimes of their parents or others. And this is exactly how the Jewish state of Israel acts. It acts in a Jewish supremacist way. The policies of those in the top positions of power is that synonymous with a racist supremacist ideology. The only reason why they can get away with this, once again I will repeat it regardless of what this person says on the East Coast, is that they enjoy the favor of those who have the power in this world. The reason why the bankers got trillions of dollars and pounds and euros for us to bail them out, the richest of the rich bankers managed to get our treasonous governments to have the American taxpayer, European taxpayers, and all of the other taxpayers of the world to bail them out, is because the bankers own the governments. They also own the mainstream media. The fact that they happen to be largely Jewish is not my opinion, it's just a simple fact. The fact that Netanyahu refers to the Jewish people as a race, countless rabbis refer to the Jewish people of a race, and the fact that the Jewish state itself requires that you prove your Jewish hereditary roots in order to come back to Israel is not my Jewish supremacist ideology. That is the ideology of the people themselves and the government themselves. So it is a racist state, and it treats people as subhumans, and this is just simple facts. Whatever is said doesn't change the hard, cold facts on the ground. And until this Jewish supremacist ideology is dealt with on a head-on level, and the lawlessness of this state is dealt with on a head-on level, none of this is going to change. We, the people, have the real power.
Okay, on that note, we're out of time.